Think back to a time you were scrolling through a forum like Reddit at 2 in the morning, reading a deeply unsettling creepypasta or a local urban legend. We've all read a story that made us look over our shoulder before turning out the light. But why do certain stories stick in our heads and cause genuine nightmares long after we close our laptops? The entities that frighten us the most are rarely random. They take the shape of the very real, waking anxieties we deal with every single day. India provides an unusually clear look at this. It's a massive, diverse nation where ancient traditions collide with rapid, hyper-modern urban growth. By looking closer at the most terrifying folklore coming out of the subcontinent, we see India's ghosts for what they really are: sociological mirrors reflecting a population's historical and cultural traumas. One pillar of Indian horror is built on the lingering trauma of systemic inequality, the strict, often violent hierarchies of the caste system. Consider the infamous college legend of Tilak Room 112. The story goes that a student from a Dalit family, the most oppressed rung of the caste ladder, gained admission to a prestigious university. He fell in love with a woman from an upper caste family, but when her father found out, he hired a gang to beat the student to death and dismember his body right in his dorm room. Overcome with grief, the young woman hung herself on her wedding night. Now her spirit haunts that room, manifesting as a grotesque, wooden-looking puppet with limbs violently yanked upward by invisible, razor-sharp strings. While the puppet ghost reflects internal social fractures, other stories trace their roots back to the external trauma of British colonial rule. Take the tale of Leelawati, an elderly professional mourner known as a Rudali. While fetching water one day, she collapsed in the dirt. A passing British captain, disgusted by the sight of the frail, bleeding woman touching his boot, kicked her aside and left her to die. That night, the captain heard a hypnotic wailing outside his estate. Drawn from his bed by the sound of intense weeping, he was found dead in the road the next morning. In a world where the marginalized had no legal or social recourse against those in power, these stories served a purpose. Supernatural revenge was the only form of justice available to the powerless. That feeling of being trapped thrives equally well in the domestic sphere, where the pressure of familial duty takes on a terrifying life of its own. One widely shared Reddit account describes an arranged marriage between a Western-raised woman and a successful engineer. They had only spoken briefly via Skype, but the pressure from her parents to marry a good boy from a good family was absolute. On the wedding day, the atmosphere was wrong. The temple was nearly empty. Her relatives wouldn't meet her eyes, and a thick, stomach-churning stench of rot hung in the air. When the bride finally reached the altar, she saw the groom. He was a bloated, decaying green corpse. He had died in a motorcycle crash weeks earlier. His mother had hidden the death and kept the body frozen because she believed her son needed a wife to navigate the next life. She refused to let him enter the afterlife alone. As the ceremony collapsed, ignited, and burst. The horror here isn't a ghost. It is the destructive power of societal expectations, illustrating the horrific extremes a family will endure simply to fulfill a duty. Today, young Indians are leaving multi-generational homes for the isolation of the city. Moving into hyper-dense urban environments means living among thousands of strangers. This lack of trust is the basis for the Calcutta paying guest story. A student, feeling unwelcome in a relative's home, snoops through the basement only to discover a massive carnivorous plant and watches as it slowly digests a man. Another modern story features a man who finally secures a government job and moves into his first apartment alone. He had always feared sleeping without others in the house, so when he feels his feet being touched at night, he sets up a video camera. The footage confirms his dread. A shadowy entity faces through his door, neatly stacks his pillows on a side table, and then lies down beside him, staring motionless into the camera lens for hours. These stories illustrate the specific anxieties of modern Indian life, the danger of trusting the wrong people in a crowded city, and the paralyzing silence of a room where no one can hear you scream. Historical trauma, traditional duty, and modern isolation. When you look at these stories together, a clear pattern emerges. The point where these three forces meet is where the monster takes shape. We create literal, tangible threats to make sense of the abstract societal pressures that are actually crushing us. Whether it's leaving a coin for a weeping spirit or checking a camera for a pillow ghost, these rituals are coping mechanisms for navigating real-world cultural tensions. The next time you find yourself scrolling through a terrifying thread online, look closer at the threat. The monster hiding under the bed is usually just a reflection of the culture waiting outside your door.